Okay, it is time for the Great Orb Review. I am Spencer WS, and today I'm going to be looking at all the orbs in the Duelist Mod and whatever they invert into, and give you lots of feedback on what makes these orbs good, what can improve them, the state of the orbs in this mod version. So I have the latest version, perhaps one step ahead of the current release version. I'm not really sure. So just keep in mind that all my comments will be coming from that. Also, one slight issue is that I have this data disk as a relic on the save file that I'm testing this on. So it's unclear to me whether or not all these orbs have increased their effects because of this data disk. So as far as orbs channeled, things might be a little wonky in evaluating, but for the rest of the orbs, we will be using the orb selection panel to see all of them. So, firstly, some overarching concerns of mine about orbs. It's obvious that this mod wants to run orbs. There are about 38 orbs in existence right now. Like 30 of them coming from this mod, I think. I'm not really sure. That suggests to me a strong desire to really just make these orbs spin. So my suggestion for that was that the orbs be more plentiful in all card pools, or at least many card pools. So the orbs will be better if you can count on both their passive effect and their evoke effect and be able to make it happen. Like the defect. Orbs are extra powerful because their passive and their evoke taken together makes them powerful. That's not to say that you can necessarily evoke an orb whenever you want, but if you can evoke an orb within like 1 to 2 turns of where you want, or you can take some extra effort to make it happen on the right turn, that's very powerful. So, a question I ask about all these orbs to determine their usefulness is, will they help when I'm in a pinch? Like, enemies packing lots of heat, and I don't have the cards I need. What's going to help? That's not the only way you can evaluate an orb, but on that criteria, I think it'll be quickly easy to notice that there are some orbs currently that are absolute fluff, and you can't count on them for anything. And so if you were to try to put such orb cards in your deck just for the effect of the orb, you're wasting your time and you're going to lose. But that said, I'm not saying that all orbs have to be equal either. Maybe some orbs are just fluff, in which case that should reflect in the way that those orb cards are balanced. So if there's a monster that generates orbs, if the orb is a fluff orb, it's not that great at all, then the monster ought to be sufficiently good apart from its orb effect. Stuff like that. Another question I ask about the orbs is, can the orb be built around? Does it have an effect? And that has 2 parts to it. Can it be built around means, is it available in the card pool that I'm in? So I can get it and be able to get it out. Not just generate a random orb and happen to get it. And the second thing is, does that same card pool have cards that can reliably build around it? I'm thinking particularly of the buffer orb. It looks like it favors spellcasters. Well, do spellcasters have good buffs that the buffer orb can increase? Probably, by the way. We'll get into that. So, without further ado, I want to go over the orbs in my channel right now. I probably should have increased my channel, and I admittedly don't know how to do that right now. I have, first I have anti-crystal. So, I don't know where you get this orb from the card pool, but this orb is absolutely incredible. I'm not sure whether or not it's profiting from data disk focus right now. I don't think so, because it's only drawing me one card still. It's a very interesting orb, and all of its effects are good except for the randomized spell. I know that this will be a harsh opinion throughout the video, but the randomized cards you really cannot count on for much. They are absolute fluff, and that's fine. I just think it's important to recognize that they are fluff. Okay. So 5 temporary HP is amazing. It's better, way better than 5 block. Incredible. Draw 1 card. This is something I'm going to address throughout the video. Card draw in the Duelist mod right now is in pretty low supply. Often it's very expensive to get some card draw. And that's fine. But that makes orbs that draw cards extra good in this mod. Okay. And its evoke effect is just incredible right now. I know that it will randomize, so whatever. I kind of like the randomized spell part because now I have like a bad evoke effect in this orb. If it goes to the randomized spell. I'm a fan because, well, I was about to say because I might have to avoid that effect and play around it. But I see that I can't really do that because it's a random anti-crystal effect, not like a consecutive anti-crystal effect. That's my plug. That's my plug for maybe a change to make this orb even more interesting by making it a consecutive anti-crystal effect, so it rotates between the 3. Alright, the crystal orb is the inverse of the anti-crystal orb. These invert into one another. So I'm not sure if it's profiting from focus right now or not. That's part of the problem here. But I think gaining 2 focus, data disk aside, I think 2 focus is it's pretty solid. It depends on how available this card is in the card pool, and I've never seen it ever. I've never seen either of these. 2 focus is... The thing is that 1 focus is too little. 1 focus is too little because this takes up 1 orb slot. So 2 focus I think is good without the data disk. And then apply weak to random enemy is kind of... I think it should be... If it's going to be that effect, it should be like 3 times. You know, bore through those artifacts. Weak is not a very great effect. Especially with all the block potential that you can get in this mod. So there's that. And then this Surge one, I know that this Surge is way far down the list, but I wanted to reference it now because it's in my channel list and it's kind of a hard effect to remember, at least for me. I'm not sure if it's benefiting from data disk. I'm going to assume it is, because that would make sense to me. That said, whenever you summon, gaining 4 block, data disk aside, is a pretty crazy, almost insane buff. It's absolutely incredible. I know that you can run out of summons by maxing your summons and whatnot, but this is still absolutely, it's incredible. It's vastly better than its inverse orb, Metal. Vastly better. Channel 2 Lightning seems better to me than Channel 1. I think Channel 2 seems a lot more fair. Lightning orbs, I found, are kind of lackluster, especially in this mod where you cannot hope for that defect power card that makes lightning hit all enemies. Can't hope for it. So that's rough. I might even bump this up to like Channel 3 Lightning or something, with the added intriguing effect of cleaning out your orb slots. That's what I would That's what I would add. So I'm not sure. I've never seen this orb either. I'm not sure how available it is in the card pool. But I will just remark that, whenever you summon, gain 4 block is absolutely an insane effect. I know it comes from the Spellcaster deck as well, except that Spellcaster has like strict loyalty conditions on that effect. And this is arguably even better. It's up in the air, because this is whenever you summon. The Spellcaster one is whenever you attack. Anyway, this is absolutely incredible. Way, way better than Metal. And I'll address the inverse relationships, I think, at the end of the video. Alrighty, I think it's time to get into our other orbs. So we're going to burn a few of these. I'm in console mode, that's how I got all these cards. Alright, welcome to the orb panel. I know I said this before, and I don't need to say it again, but I really hope that this card art will be changed. Maybe even changed back to the orbs, because this looks so boring. And I don't know, if you're a player and you just ran into this, which is really hard to get because there's only like 1 or 2 cards that allow you to choose any orb now, which I greatly appreciate. That was a good change. If you run into this, God help you. I mean, it just looks so overwhelming and boring at the same time. So I hope there's some graphical changes that make you like really excited as to what you're getting into here. Okay, so Air Orb is like sort of the classic orb, classic special orb of this mod. There's a chance to channel a random offensive orb. This has been buffed since the last update, that the orb is offensive, and also you have a higher chance if only dragons are summoned. Its evoke effect is classic. I love it. I have felt that it's just a wonderful combo to its passive effect. So I'm a big fan of the evoke effect. It's great. And also, its passive is good. I think it's a little low if you're not running dragons. What especially hurts as a result of this is spellcasters, because there are certain magicians, I think Dark Magician Girl in the Toon version or in the normal version, that channel an air orb. So it hurts that the air orb isn't very effective for spellcasters. Speaking of effectiveness, I don't know what its chances are, and that's going to be a difficulty in evaluation throughout. But I had 2 air orbs channeled, and it took 4 turns to generate 1 extra orb. So that was not great, and I hope that that's not indicative of your chances, because that's pretty low. The fact that it channels offensive orbs is a huge buff, though, and that might counterbalance the fact that the chance is not so great. We'll look at the offensive orbs in a moment. Let me read off what I think all the offensive orbs are in this mod. Dark orbs, fire orbs, gate orbs, lava orbs, lightning orbs, and then some orbs I'm not sure of. Hellfire, I don't think that's offensive, strictly speaking. Mist, I hope it's not offensive. Can't remember why I hope it's not offensive. Mud might be. It poisons. I'm not sure if that counts. And Splash. I expect that Splash is an offensive orb. I can't remember what its passive is, or one of its effects deals damage. Anyway, so that's the air orb. We already did the anti-crystal. Black is the orb that I vehemently hate in this mod. I think it's terrible. It should be nothing more than fluff, at best. It has a chance to you have a chance to apply a random debuff with 1 stack to a random enemy. Okay, higher chance of all monster summoner fiends. So first of all, you have a chance, no guarantee, and it's probably not a high chance, unless you have fiends. Secondly, the debuff is random. It could be like strength down. It could be like 1 weak. It could be 1 vulnerable. It could be 1 slow, maybe. Like, you don't know what it is, so you really can't expect to make use of it in general. The only advantage is that you get this buff at the start of the turn, so your hand can actually try to hit it. I'm not aware of all the debuffs in the game, but I will say that a random debuff is significantly worse than a random buff because there are some incredible buffs in this game, but debuffs are sort of they're very tame. That's the problem, and its evoke effect is something that I'll continue to mention as not good throughout. One randomized fiend it's nothing that you can count on. You can flip a few switches in the config section to make these randomized monsters better, but it feels bad. Currently, I have them upgraded, and their cost only goes down or something like that. That's what I've conceded to because I kind of want to make these randomized cards do something for me. I think this effect, if you're going to leave it this way, should be 2 randomized fiends. I think an evoke effect that adds 1 randomized card to your hand is really weak as it is. I think 2 is much better. Speaking of which, I think fiends deserve a lot more love than this crummy black orb. If I were to wager on an ambitious effect that would help the fiends, I would say at the start of your turn, draw 2 cards and immediately discard them. That's what I was thinking of, like, oh, you could take use of the effects, the fiends retrieve from discard pile effects. But it's a double-edged sword because sometimes in your deck you want to make sure that you can play a certain card as soon as you draw it, and if you discard it, not so great. I don't know. I think it's more good than bad because if you're running a dedicated fiend deck, the chance that you're going to get cards out of your discard pile is very, very high. Very, very high. So the fact that you're cycling through your whole deck faster is just such a relief. I think an effect like that would be bomb. Also, like the relics that benefit from shuffling your deck and whatnot are all getting extra mileage. I like the idea as I hear it. Okay, Blaze. Okay, I hate this orb. It's one of the few orbs on the list that's farmable. Oh, I forgot. I need to address the inverse of black here, which is the white orb. And I'm not going to proc it because it actually won't tell me its effect, but I know its effect. So the white orb upgrades all spells and traps that you draw as a passive. Insane. Super, super good. Its pairing with black is like tragic. Super good. Especially because certain spells and traps have Arcana effects, so they can upgrade again and again and again as you draw them. I do not think this upgrade spells and traps effect is actually broken, because it will take a long time to get mileage out of upgrading spells and traps, and honestly, if your cards are that important, you should probably be upgrading anyway, and I don't know how important, I don't know how accessible white is as an orb, so I would not call that effect broken, actually. I would call that effect nice. Its passive upgrades all cards in your hand, which I think is a little bit lackluster, but I'm not quite sure what to do about that. So it could be useful. If you like double upgrade an Arcana card in one turn, that's not bad. I'm not sure how you'd do it though. I like the concept of white. It's just unique and interesting, and I'm a fan. If you're gonna have a variety of orbs, white definitely deserves a place. Black is trash, and I hope that the effect will be changed. But if you're treating it like fluff, well, it doesn't make sense if you treat this like fluff unless. Well, okay, let me step back a moment. If this orb is treated as fluff, then we have to make sure it's not too easy to invert it into a white orb, because that orb's not fluff. But, that's not really broken, because a white orb isn't broken. So, if you have a fluffy black orb that you can regularly invert into a white orb, like, that's 2 steps. Like, that's really hard. And, especially because, I don't know, you're probably running fiends. So, not magic and whatnot. So, I don't know. It's probably fine. It's probably fine. I just wish the black orb would change. Okay. Blaze orb. Totally farmable. That's what I do not like about this orb. The healing orbs are farmable, and that's why I don't like healing on orbs whatsoever. I'm going to call them farm or famine orbs, because if you need a good orb, these are not it. They'll get you killed. But if you're high on your seat, and you're always blocking well, and you're able to wait out a battle, then these just farm you they just farm up your health. So, doubly bad, in my opinion. Also, its evoke effect is just absolutely nuts. That's absolutely insane. I don't want a random orb to entirely turn my game around against a fearsome enemy. Maybe I do, but I just hate the prospect that you could actually get this orb by inverting it from what? From like a mist orb or something, and heal based on how long you've been in combat. Oh, no, no, no. So bad. If this were temporary HP, it'd be better, but honestly, I think this orb needs a rework, or it needs to go, and then have other orb relationships shuffled around or whatnot. Okay. Mist. This is a seriously good orb, and it comes from the Blaze orb. They have an inverse relationship. So, at the start of the turn, increment 2. That's serious. That's really serious. I'm a fan, by the way. I don't think that's too strong. It's almost too strong, and it might be too strong. I'm not sure, but I don't think it is. Also, deal damage to 3 damage to a random enemy for each of your max summons is great. Maybe I overstate its greatness, but like in a prolonged battle, it will work out well for you. It's a good source. I mean, right out of the box, you get 15 damage on this orb's evoke effect, spread across random enemies. That's nothing to shake at. And it only gets better over time. It ups by 6 over time. So that's pretty great. I think this orb is pretty seriously good. Any increment strategies and like summon stacking and all that kind of stuff, it's right here. So I hope an orb like this stays around. I've noticed that increment increasing strategies tend not to be successful because there are too few cards in the draw pool that increase that increment for you. So I hope this orb stays around. Okay. Buffer is a very interesting orb that increases your buffs by 1. You have a chance to do it. And, you know, with the chance, it's always hard to evaluate. I don't actually like the chance mechanic whatsoever, but okay, it's a form of balance. So this only works well with spellcasters, I think. I'm not aware of all the great buffs you could have. The big question for me is, first of all, is power buffs for this card? Like buffs from powers? If so, this card is totally broken, and I would change its effect. But if not, I think the card's a little weak. What's it? You got strength. You got artifacts. You got thorns if you're lucky. What else do you have? Yeah, what else do you have? I don't think the orb is good enough if you don't count powers, unfortunately. Except for focus. So let me qualify that. I think that if this orb counts focus, then it's conceptually problematic because when you increase focus, you increase how much all your buffs increase, and then you increase that focus by more, yada yada yada. It may not be entirely broken because it may take some time to get to work, but in combination with all these like healing orbs, even one healing orb or whatever, I don't know. That's the biggest snowball that you could possibly get in these orbs as such, and so that should probably be changed, accounted for. Okay, maybe the chance slows it down enough. I don't know. Anyway, its evoke effect is terrible. Gain a random buff that lasts for 2 turns. Unless it's counting power. No, if it's counting power buffs, it's also terrible because it's just random. There's no guarantee that that buff will be useful for you at all. Not a fan of this at all. I don't even really like the concept of the buffer. I kind of hope it gets removed. I think the glass orb copying a random enemy buff is definitely in a better direction as far as buffing. However, if this orb's going to stick around, what I would recommend is that either for its passive or its evoke effect, that you get a buffer I mean, is that too much of a play on words? You get the buffer buff that absorbs damage. I'd be a fan of that. As an evoke effect, it makes sense, but you could. But as a passive effect, if you have a chance at getting it, it wouldn't be broken. Okay, consumer orb. Did I look at this inverse orb? This is gonna be hard for me to keep track of. Yeah. Okay. The other orb is reducer. I'm glad I have this cheat sheet here. Reducer. Okay. Set the cost of one random card in your hand to 0. At the start of your turn, increase the number of cards that will be reduced. So this is a good... Well, no, it's not. So this is actually a really bad card. A really bad orb. So you don't have much control over which turn you evoke it, which is your biggest problem. And you also have to wait for it to work, which is really problematic. And finally... the cards are random, and so a lot of bad things going for it. Compare this to a plasma orb. A plasma orb just gives you 1 energy each turn and evokes for 2. That is so much better than this reducer orb because you can carefully pick which cards you want to play. So plasma is currently much better than this reducer orb. I have to admit, since both these orbs are bad, wouldn't hurt too much to remove them both. I don't really like them, and maybe the relationships can be redrawn, as I've said before. But I think this is not succeeding as a concept. It's not powerful. Okay, where are we? Consumer. All right, consumer is the worst orb I have ever encountered in this mod. It is terrible to get, and it's very, very easy to get because spellcasters are full of summoner orbs, which invert into this one. And spellcasters of any group, as far as I can see, invert orbs very quickly, very easily. So it is a high chance that by accident you will get one of these consumer orbs in your slots, and they are terrible. So Tribute 2, does that increase from focus? Please God, no. Tribute 2 and gain temporary HP equal total energy cost of all... Okay. So, to get into this, first of all, I don't think this is actually working as written, but basically, the energy cost of the summoned monsters that you tribute, multiplied by 2, that's not that great. You could do something fantastic with that, but it's rare to find a monster that summons well and has an energy cost. I know there are a few, to be fair. There are a few. Its evoke effect is absolutely devastating for you. Tribute all monsters gain a random buff. So remember, random buff is random buff, you know? What can you do with it? We don't know. But it tributes all your summons on evoke. Man. And remember, you know, no character has the finest control of when orbs evoke. Particularly the duelist. They don't have total freedom here. So tributing all summons is rough. I am not a fan of this orb at all. I really hope it changes. I know it makes sense as the inverse of summoner, but surely we can do something different than this. Alright, we already went over crystal. Dark inverts into plasma, by the way. I don't actually think that makes the most sense, but that's for another video, I suppose. Dragon orbs. Okay, so the problem with the dragon orb is that the unupgraded version is not good. Gives you one randomized dragon and sets the cost of one random dragon to 1. But most dragons already cost 1. That's the problem. I think this, whenever it says set the cost of one random card dragon monster in your hand, I think that cost should be 0. I know that seems pretty cheap, but like most cards cost 1. So it's not special. I think one card costing 0 would make the effect at least somewhat formidable. On the other hand, because upgraded dragons, the upgraded dragon orb costs 0, which by the way, this orb inverts to an upgraded dragon orb. It's a little tricky, but and the upgraded dragon orb's not here, so I'm evaluating it now. It's pretty good to get an upgraded dragon and to get a chance for that dragon to cost 0. Not bad, not bad. Yeah, I think that's the best I can say about this. It's based on its passive and evoke effects. I think that the card should cost 0. I think that would balance it out better. Okay, Earth. Yeah, good. I'm staying with the inverse relationships, so that's good. Okay, so Earth inverts into Mud. So I'm going to try to remember to cover those both. Okay, Earth, its passive is not special. In my own opinion, you know, randomization is not that great. At the start of the turn, add 1 randomized spell to your hand. And then Evoke, it's the same deal. I think that this should definitely be 0. Most spells cost 1. Very few spells cost more than that, as far as I know. It's it's rather uncommon compared to all the spells you can pick up. So yeah, I think it should cost 0, and that will counterbalance for the fact that the randomization is not so great, also. So I think that's favorable, especially if you want to do like a spells matter, you know, sort of deck style, which I have often wanted to do with the starter deck, by the way. So. Okay, Mud. Okay, Mud has gotten a lot more interesting here. At the start of the turn, apply 2 poison to a random enemy. Apply double poison if all monsters summoned are insects. Okay, so this is incredible. It is incredible for single target foes. Incredible. Especially bosses. I think based on the fact that insects dish out poison real hard, I don't think it makes sense to apply double poison if all monsters summoned are insects. That's crazy. I think it should be like 3 poison. And even that seems kind of excessive. I'm not sure insects really need a boost here. Let's see here, though. But, you know, there's a loyalty cost in here, too, so it's kind of hard to evaluate. Its evoke effect does not make sense to me. Gaining 3 thorns. First of all, that's quite good. You packed 2 incredible effects into 1 orb. I don't think it should gain thorns. I'm not really sure what it should do. Like maybe it gains you block, or I'm trying to think of what Mud might do when it dries or something. Maybe apply slow to an enemy. I know the sand does that, but you know, shift things around. I don't know. Maybe apply constricted, but that's kind of redundant because you already applied poison. I'm not exactly sure, but I think 3 thorns is kind of, it doesn't make card sense to me, and it's quite good. Maybe that should be somewhere else. Okie dokie. Moving on to fire and water. First of all, fire is super hot. It is super good. Its passive effect. The only problem with this passive effect, I should qualify myself. I actually got a little drunk off the fiery tiger that I got in this version, and I realized the fire doesn't actually deal this damage to all enemies normally. It deals damage to a random enemy. So actually, I think I'll just call this good. The problem that I've noticed in this mod is because card draw is so expensive and somewhat rare, you don't play more than 3, 4, 5 cards per turn in this mod. That's certainly not bad for a single target. Certainly not bad. But that's just something to keep in mind, is you can't actually go off the chain on playing lots of cards. The tribute to dragons, in both senses, is not a bad effect. I'm not sure how to improve it, but it's not bad as it is, so I guess I'll just leave it as is. It's a pretty good orb. Yeah, I like it. Alright, where's the water orb? Water. Okay. Start of the turn, draw 1 card. Evoke, draw 2 cards. That is bananas. That is so good. Especially in this mod. Extra card draw with dedicated extra card draw on Evoke. It's like, man, you can count on this card. What a great effect. What I like is that this has such an interesting relationship to the fire orb. Yeah, it's really interesting. I would be like, you might have to consider like, when should I invert this orb, and should I invert this orb, and it's like, man, advantages, drawbacks, man. It's really interesting. I think this is a very happy marriage if you're just going for like 2 orbs that do a good job. Okay, Frost is the vanilla orb. What does it channel into? Lava. Okay, well, let's talk about lava. I have found lava to be terrible currently. It is no good, and the reason why, it's so obviously bad when you start out with a zombie deck, because you can't evoke it. And there's, as far as I've seen, there's like not a whole lot of orb availability for zombies. I think that's changing. I think like shadow orbs and other things are showing up, but man, it's not good. Not good. Also, as a point of like gameplay theory, having a prolonged effect that hits all enemies is not very good, because when you fight multiple enemies, you often want to kill each one as quickly as possible. So I'm thinking I know that there are some vanilla cards that behave like this, notably the Silence Grand Finale. But let's be real here. Grand Finale is also a 0-cost card that deals 50 to 60 damage. It's plenty useful against single targets. And often you only take Grand Finale if you can manipulate it, cheat it, or help ensure it in some way. Anyway, so I'm not at all a fan of this lava card. Also, lava doesn't make card sense to me. In what way are zombies working with lava? When I see the orb itself, it makes me feel like it's like flies or pestilence or something. And I think there's some ammunition there for a cooler orb for zombies. The random effect is not. It's not terrible. It starts out it's just too hard to evoke. I think it's the problem. It's hard to figure out exactly what's the problem here. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, it's hard to say more to this. This is a very complex effect. I think the leading problem is that you can't evoke it. The random number threshold might be a little bit too loose, like 1 to 15. I don't know what the damage potential increase is about. I wouldn't know, but I hope it's nice. I haven't had a good experience with this orb at all. Okie dokie. Gadgets. Okay, so the machines have some cool orbs at their disposal already. Gadget is definitely an example of this. It is a very interesting orb. So one thing I noticed when I was looking at it earlier is it's not clear to me that its evoke effect will benefit from extra focus, and I think it should. So I just want to clarify that. So you gain 2 dexterity until the end of the turn. Okay, so this is cool, and it makes sense with the gadget sort of theme, but an issue, just an issue, and it might be a known issue, is that because the machines can generate artifacts so much, they will likely be able to keep this dexterity. And stack it over time. I don't think that's terrible outright. I think if you were to spend artifacts to gradually increase your block, that's not too good. over time in a boss battle, it might be like a might be a reliance. Like you need to do that in order to scale to match the bosses, maybe. But like, if you're running a deck of 30 cards, you can't really count on a gadget. You know, you might not draw it until turn 4, and your block cards ought to be doing enough work by then. So I think because the effect is not too dependable, it's not broken to stack dexterity like this. Just be aware that if you do succeed in stacking dexterity, if there are farming shenanigans that can be done, they will be done as a point of optimal play, which I never like. I never like that. Its evoke effect is super interesting. I love it. I'm not sure how well I can manipulate it and you can manipulate it by controlling what skills you play and whatnot. I like it a lot. It's super cool. Maybe playing a random trap might be better than playing a random skill, because it's kind of a headache to like keep track of the skills in this mod, because they mix in with the spells and traps and whatnot. I think playing a random trap would be cool. Okay. Oh yeah, this what does this become? Becomes a glitch. I do not like the inverse relationship between these orbs. They both benefit machines, which is fine, but I'm not really seeing the theme here, inverting here. So this glitch orb is what I would call okay. It's kind of annoyingly random, but I have noticed that the random effects are not bad. I'd say for any group other than machines, this orb is bad. It doesn't do much for you whatsoever. And its evoke effect is just meh. For machines, though, it's good. Now, what I've noticed that counterbalances what I've said about this orb is that you can get this in groups of 2 in the Duelist mod. So having an orb that's sort of watered down, not that great, but you can get it in groups of 2, is a great way to add orb variety and be able to cycle your orbs a little bit better and such like that. So I appreciate that. This is the only random orb that I can accept. Okay. Hellfire and Splash. Hellfire's passive effect is pretty good. Gain 2 strength till the end of the turn. It's exploitable with artifacts, but I'm not sure if Hellfire and machines are really finding a way to get together. Be a nice little hack if you could find like 1 or 2 cards that give you that. Its evoke effect is like it's on the weak side, but like it's hard to say because vulnerable is quite good. I would give this 2 vulnerable. I know that 2 vulnerable is a little sketch, might be a little much, but I think 1 vulnerable is, I don't know, it's a little bit too little, because often, as I said, you don't have so much freedom to determine when these orbs get evoked. So 2 vulnerable might give you some flexibility there. I'm not exactly sure. It depends on how available this card is in the card pool. This orb. Splash. Okay. As I recall, Splash, yeah. So when you trigger an overflow effect or play a monster with 3 or more summons, deal 7 damage, apply weak to all enemies. So I'm a big fan. I can't be sure that this orb is good. I don't see a lot of overflow effects in the card pool, all things taken together. I think there are very few of those. But a monster with 3 or more summons, I think there are also very few of those, but there are ways to increase the summons. I can see it in the evoke effect, yada yada. I think this has the potential to be good. I think I like the theme of it. It's interesting. It makes me feel like doing something I wouldn't normally do in a deck, and that's a good sign. I think maybe bumping up the damage, or maybe applying 2 weak or something will make this a bigger deal. Um, it's really hard to say right now. I'd have to know the card resources very well to make a comment on it. I think that just it's kind of hard to build around this right now, and if you don't build around this, its effect is it's not great. But if you build around it, it's significantly better. Keep in mind that effects to all enemies that can't go off quickly are not very good because you want to kill one enemy at a time as quick as possible. If all enemies are still alive by like turn 4, you're probably dead. Okay. Blaze, Hellfire, Lava. I already commented on that. Okay, Light. As I recall, Light heals 3 solid hit points. This may be my data disk speaking when I channeled it. 3 hit points and then regenerates for 6 on Evoke. I think that's the data disk though. I think it normally heals for 2 and regens for 5 or something like that. Anyway, if that's the case, 5 regen is absolutely absurd. It is. I hope that this light orb doesn't come in infinite supply. Like, I hope there's not a reusable monster that generates it, because this is just Farm City. It's another farm or famine card, so if you're doing well, this will farm you to full health. If you're doing badly, this will probably get you killed. I don't like either application. So healing 2 hit points, yes, it's farm or famine. There's really nothing more I can say about it. I think that's a big problem, and I hope that this doesn't endure as a concept. I don't think that's a good way to play the game at all. Yeah, I don't think I need to say much more. Regen is just insane if you can get it to stack. Like, it's like poison. So if you stack 5 regen with 5 regen, suddenly you've got like 10 factorial health, and that's a ton of health. It's like 81 or something. I don't even know. More than like 21 or something from the 5. Okay. By the way, in an Ascension run, I have actually stacked 2 regen potions together and used them both against the Stonehead. It worked great. would do again. Okay. Lightning and Storm. Okay, Lightning is sort of vanilla. We know about this. I actually feel like, at least in this mod, as I said, Lightning is a little bit underwhelming, even though it's vanilla, because you have no chance of getting the card that makes it hit all enemies. Storm. Okay. Add a randomized power card to your hand. Okay, randomized power is good, because power cards are powerful. Generally, you only use them once. So they're good. Maybe that was a bit of an overstatement, but I think power cards are generally very good. So this is a little bit better than just your average randomized card. Its tribute effect is rough. Consuming 1 orb slot and reducing the tribute cost of all monsters in your draw pile is a no-no. You can't really control when you evoke. That's something I'm going off of right now. And it's like, what does your draw pile look like when you evoke? Who knows? It's not good at all. Losing an orb slot is just a dagger to the heart, man. It's really, really rough. That's why the vanilla version only did it in exchange for like 2 focus or something. It's serious business. I think that this Storm should be an orb that does something beneficial for aqua monsters. I think some synergy between the lightning and the storm and the water type that's already in the game would be nice. I'm not sure what that looks like exactly. Dare I say, like, randomized aquas? But I don't like that. Don't get me wrong. But like increasing the damage of aqua monsters, or I don't really know. Summoning some aqua monsters or something. I think that would be better and interesting. Alright, metal. So I think I addressed the metal when I addressed the surge. This card has toned down significantly. so you only gain block equal to half the numbers of spells. Over time, this card can still be pretty good if you're playing a lot of spells. It can become an indestructible wall, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It'll take long enough to do that. So if you're doing spells and you can find a way to generate a metal, good on you. That's probably not too broken because it's hard to do. Metallicize 4 is pretty strong. That's like, arguably this nerf was a little bit too much of a nerf, but the rare relic, the like spool and thread or something that gives you 4 metallicize is already a rare relic. It's pretty good. Arguably it should have done 5. It should have stayed at 5 in my opinion, but nevertheless, metallicize 4 is a bit much. I would lower that to 3. Yeah. What's interesting is that Surge Orb is just so much better than this Metal Orb, unless you can evoke the Metal Orb, and even then, probably not so good. Unless you're doing more evokes than you are passives. But how are you going to do that in the Duelist Mod? There's not many ways to evoke orbs. But then again, that's changing because you can channel more orbs. So I have to keep a lot of things in mind at once. All right. We'll save this for last. Mist. Okay, I think I already addressed this. I like it. It's really nice. Monster Orb is gross for me because, I already don't like the randomized stuff. But now it's just any monster. It's just any monster. And like a pool of what? Like 200, 300 cards? 300 monsters? Ugh. There's no way you're going to use that. And also the cost should be 0 if we're going to do this concept at all. This inverts into the token orb, which is actually super good. And I don't necessarily like that. So let me recall the effect of the token orb. I think it's generate 2 tokens at the start of your turn, and then something else. I'm gonna have to look into it. Let's generate it. Okay. Change. Oh yes, that's right. So add 2 random tokens to your hand is totally broken right now, and the reason why is because tokens are broken right now. If you can farm gold off of tokens, or you can get any orb from like an orb token, tokens are broken. I think that really needs to be sifted through. This is an incredible effect right now, and its evoke effect is absolutely nuts. 3 random monsters for 0. Oh, you mean all the monsters in my hand? Because that's probably what it's gonna do. Just insane. So I don't know why it's so good and the monster orb is so pitiful. Well, that was quick. Okay. Where are we? I think we're somewhere around here. Yeah, Monster Orb, Token Orb. So I think Monster Orb's got to be reworked. I'm not sure how I would, though. Yeah, that's a project for another time. I'm not exactly sure how I'd do that. Okay, Mud. I already addressed this. Yeah. Plasma, already did. Reducer, yeah. Sand, okay. Okay, so for the reasons I mentioned earlier, card draw is expensive in this mod. It's hard to play multiple cards, more than 3 to 5 per turn, and because of that, this slow effect is a little awkward. It doesn't do as much of a job as you would hope. Its evoke effect is interesting. I'd just say interesting. I'm not really sure how useful it would be. The only problem being you don't always have the freedom to. Don't always have the freedom to evoke on the turn that you want to do massive damage. That's the problem here. I'm not sure if slow wears off. I think it should, but I don't know if it always does. So I'm assuming it does wear off, and that's where my comments are coming from. So too slow, it's all right. Play like 3 cards, and that puts you up to like 50% damage or something. That's 1 vulnerable right there, so that's not bad. Yeah, hard to evaluate, but I think this orb maybe needs a more creative evoke effect. But otherwise, I'm down with it. Okay, what is this? Oh yeah, this becomes glass. Where's the glass? Did I already mention this, or did I forget? Oh, did I even mention the gate orb? I'm not sure I did. At all. What happened? Oh, I jumped from gadget to glitch. Oh, such an easy mistake to make. Anyway, uh, glass orb. Okay, so this card is going somewhere. That I grant. So it has no passive, which is, I think, a good compensation for its evoke effect. I'm paying attention. You know, this orb has my attention. I'm really interested with this. Unaffected by focus, which is good. The only thing I think is that this card should gain all enemy buffs on a random enemy, because there are a lot of enemy buffs that do not help the player whatsoever, and I don't really need a 50-50 chance to get a good buff off of this glass orb. And as far as I understand, the buffs that you get even on bosses that could benefit you are not that great. They're not that great except over time, in which case you've got other problems if the buff is good by that point. So it's an interesting orb. It could do something interesting, that's for sure. I know that the dream is to run into the tournament scenario in Act 2 and then use this on the Gremlin knob or something first turn, but that's never going to happen. Because the enrage effect on Ascension is bonkers. I'm not sure if it works, actually. I'm not sure if it even works. I think it does work on your deck. I'm not sure, though. So this orb has my attention. We'll see what this can do. But I think it should copy all enemy buffs. Yeah, because chances are you'll get a buff that you can't use. And hopefully you can't use it. Please don't, like, break the game over this card. Like, you know, Slime King, have me split into two. Anyway. Okay. Gate Orb. So the Gate Orb is absolutely nuts. It's sick. I like it. As long as it's very, very rare, I think this is cool. It doesn't look like... I can't tell whether or not it gains from focus. I know that the old version didn't. I have no idea what a gate effect is, so I cannot evaluate its evoke effect. It looks like it's powerful. It looks like it will last after it evokes, which... Wow. I think that probably... I think it should just... If the gate effects are listed right here, then I think twice the power is kind of insane. I think that choose two random gate effects, have them persist or something. I don't know. I'm not sure how to do this orb, but I think it's very powerful for an orb to evoke and yet continue to provide advantages and buffs and whatnot. It's pretty crazy. This orb inverts from a void orb, which is quite an exploit as far as I see, because it seems easier to get a void orb than a gate orb from the spellcaster group and then evoke it like through Chaos Sorcerer or something, and then evoke it into a gate orb. So that's a hack right there. Okay, so evoke the void orb I think needs to be reworked. Currently it's contrary to what it says on the effect, it is giving me temporary hit points, which I prefer, because otherwise this is a farm or famine card. Absolutely. It's even worse than the light orb, I think. Or maybe, I don't know. Balanced with this evoke effect it is. So, I don't fully understand this void thing, but I think it needs to be reworked. Temporary HP would work, but I think something more voidy, some more voidy effect would be nice. I think like passive, lose one energy and then do something great would be super interesting, especially as a contrast to the gate orb. and then you can invert this with the plasma orb. There's like so much here. I'll be doing more commentary on the inverse relationships between orbs and how they might be better restructured. So that's the best I can say about this right now. Okay, so we skipped the gate orb and the glass orb, but I think we're over at sand. Okay, shadow. So shadow gives you a chance to summon a shadow token. Higher if all your monsters are zombies. Okay, so I appreciate some zombie support with these orbs. The evoke effect is nice, especially because it benefits from focus, but I'm not sure how available focus is for zombies. It's nice. We want to be doing resummoning, so it's just a wonderful evoke effect. I love it. What's interesting is the chance for this to spiral out of control. So I looked at the shadow token effect, and I'm not sure if it applies to just summoning off the orb. But there's a chance for the shadow token to, like, I can't remember exactly what it does, but like it increases all the cards that generates shadow tokens by 1 or something like that. I don't know if it combos with the shadow orb, but it could start hyper generating shadow tokens. I've forgotten the exact details, unfortunately. But there's some synergy going on there, and I'm not sure how to evaluate that. Oh yeah, shadow orbs. What does this evoke into? Light. Okay, light. Oh, it's that one. I guess I didn't address that earlier. Yeah, so don't like light. Let's just say that. So, all right. Smoke. Okay, I hate this orb. So whenever you draw a monster, increase the tribute cost by 1 and the damage by 4. I don't think this is succeeding as a effect concept. I don't think it's working at all. Also, its evoke effect is not good. I mean, even if I were to get like a 12 tribute monster in my hand and evoke this card the same turn, it's only 12 damage to all enemies for all that prep. For all this stuff I can't do and whatever. So it's not very good. Not really a fan of it. I think it's got to be I think it's got to totally change its effect, and that's a conversation for another time. Splash Storm Summoner is excellent. Its evoke effect is nice as well. This is the card that gave me an idea that possibly some inverse relationships between orbs should effectively switch their active and passive effects. I think that might be interesting. This is the card that makes me want that, because I do not want a consumer orb. They're terrible. I'll at least try to avoid. I'll try to avoid inverting it because I do have the control over that. But there are some good cards that invert orbs, and the spellcaster deck is just so awful. Anyway, so this is quite good. Surge we already talked about. Token orb we already talked about. I think that's all except for the very last. I think we've addressed everything except for the Millennium Orb. So, spoilers ahead, because this orb is very, very special. This orb procs your Millennium Puzzle as a passive effect. I think that's super sweet. I just hope that it's so cool. But I just hope that every Millennium Puzzle effect in each deck theme will do well to be procced by this orb. And finally, you add X randomized cards. I don't know what X means. Like, does it take all your energy? That's interesting. X randomized cards from the card reward pool. I don't even know what pool they're referring to here. Into your hand. If that's referring to like the rewards you can get after the particular battle you're in, that's sick. That sounds like it's designed to work well on bosses and such like that. Very, very cool. Also, this orb inverts. This orb inverts into a dark Millennium Orb. What does that do? I have no idea. It's not here. It's not here at all. So there's one dark secret on this panel that I haven't explored yet. All right. I certainly hope that I have addressed all the orbs on this list and as I needed to channel them. I think I have. I gotta take a break now, but thanks for listening, and I hope that this was helpful. This Duelist mod is legit. I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of orb crazy, but I'm trying to rein it back into something sleek. So, yeah, take care and play on.